John McTigue, Leroy Kassim, and Terence Shields thought they could outsmart the law with the largest heroin shipment ever seized in Merseyside. But when 84 kilograms worth millions were uncovered near Liverpool's waterfront, their daring operation came crashing down, sending shockwaves through the city and putting a ruthless gang behind bars for years. In early 2022, Liverpool's waterfront was as busy as ever, with cargo ships unloading goods that kept the city moving. But beneath the everyday hustle, something far more dangerous was unfolding. Police officers had been tracking suspicious activity for weeks, following whispered tips and unusual patterns of movement near the docks. Something big was about to happen, and law enforcement was ready to stop it. The tension was thick as officers concealed themselves along the waterfront, hidden behind containers and parked trucks. Their eyes never left a plain white van that had just pulled into the area, a vehicle that didn't quite fit the normal flow of traffic. The van moved slowly, carefully, stopping in a secluded spot near the water's edge. As the officers prepared to act, the weight of the moment settled over everyone involved. This could be the biggest drug bust Merseyside had ever seen. Suddenly, the operation swung into motion. The van was surrounded, doors flung open, and what lay inside shocked even the most experienced officers. Inside were 84 kilograms of heroin, packed tightly into neat bundles. The amount was staggering. This haul alone was worth between £4 and £5 million on the streets, a massive blow to the illegal drug trade in the region. The officers quickly arrested the three men found at the scene, their faces revealing nothing but cold calculation. The gang had been bold enough to bring such a vast quantity through Liverpool's busy port, a place usually buzzing with business and life. But the police were prepared, and the capture was swift. News of the seizure spread rapidly, causing shockwaves throughout the city and among criminal networks. This was not just another drug bust. It was a statement that authorities were serious about cracking down on the drug trade in Liverpool. Behind the scenes, investigations into how the gang managed to pull off such a risky operation began immediately. The scale of the haul raised questions. Who supplied the drugs? How did they avoid detection for so long? What would this seizure mean for the wider battle against drug crime in Merseyside? The answers promised to reveal a deeper and more dangerous world, one that stretched far beyond the waterfront itself. The three men arrested at the Liverpool waterfront became the focus of a major investigation that quickly captured public attention. John McTigue, aged 41, was known within criminal circles as a key player in drug trafficking. His reputation for running large-scale operations made him a prime suspect in the heroin haul. But many wondered how deep his involvement truly went. Alongside him were Leroy Kassim and Terence Shields, both with criminal histories tied to drug offenses. The trio had been involved in the supply of not only heroin, but also cocaine and amphetamines, showing a versatility in their criminal dealings. What stood out was the level of organization behind their operation. It wasn't just about moving drugs, it was about controlling the supply chain, managing contacts, and evading law enforcement. McTigue's role was believed to be that of a mastermind, orchestrating shipments and coordinating logistics. Leroy Kassim was suspected of handling distribution in the city, while Terence Shields played a crucial role in managing the money and securing safe locations for storing drugs. The police investigation uncovered layers of complexity in the gang's operation, revealing how each member had a specific role to ensure the business ran smoothly. This was not a small-time crew but a well-oiled machine that had likely been operating for years. As the arrests were made, the gang members were held on charges related to the supply and possession of heroin, cocaine and amphetamine. The police and prosecutors prepared for a lengthy legal battle, confident in the evidence gathered but aware that these men had resources and contacts that could challenge the case. Meanwhile, the local community watched closely, knowing that this case could be a turning point in the fight against drug trafficking in Merseyside. The sheer size of the heroin haul was proof that Liverpool was a key hub in the drug trade, and the arrest of these three men was just the beginning of uncovering the full scope of the network. Behind the headlines and court proceedings, investigators worked tirelessly to trace the origins of the drugs and identify other members of the operation. The story of John McTigue, Leroy Kassim and Terence Shields was not just about one big bust. It was about dismantling a dangerous and far-reaching criminal enterprise that had impacted countless lives across the region. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that the 3 men arrested were only the visible tip of a much larger and more dangerous criminal network. This gang was far from a simple group of local dealers. Instead, it was part of a sprawling web that extended across cities and even countries, connecting Liverpool to international drug routes. The heroin found on the van was traced back to suppliers overseas, revealing links to drug cartels that controlled production and shipment on a global scale. These suppliers relied on local gangs like McTigue's crew to distribute the drugs once they landed on British soil. The network was structured like a business, with different layers handling specific tasks. At the top were the international suppliers, who managed the production and bulk shipment. Below them were the mid-level organizers, responsible for smuggling the drugs into the country and coordinating with local distributors. Finally, street-level dealers ensured the drugs reached users across Merseyside and beyond. Police investigations uncovered how meticulously the gang operated. They used coded messages, encrypted phones and secret meeting points to avoid detection. Safe houses were set up across Liverpool where drugs and money could be stored safely. Couriers transported the heroin and other drugs using vehicles with false compartments, changing routes frequently to evade law enforcement. The gang was highly aware of the risks, but the massive profits outweighed the danger. It wasn't just heroin, cocaine and amphetamines were also part of the supply, making the gang a major player in multiple drug markets. This diversity allowed them to dominate various parts of the illegal trade, attracting customers from different areas and backgrounds. For the police, understanding this complex web was crucial. Arresting the 3 men was a major victory, but dismantling the entire operation required patience and careful planning. Investigators worked to identify other members of the network, from financiers to street dealers, hoping to break the supply chain at multiple points. The scale of the network also exposed the enormous challenge facing law enforcement. For every arrest made, others could rise to take their place. Yet the evidence gathered during this investigation promised to deal a significant blow, sending a clear message that even the most well-organized gangs would face justice. In the weeks leading up to the dramatic arrest at the Liverpool waterfront, law enforcement officers relied heavily on surveillance to build their case and track the gang's movements. The operation was carefully planned, combining traditional police work with modern technology. Officers placed hidden cameras and listening devices in key locations near the docks, monitoring traffic patterns and suspicious behavior. Drones were deployed to fly silently over the area, capturing footage from above without drawing attention. These aerial views provided valuable insight into how the gang operated, revealing their vehicles, meeting spots, and the timing of drug transfers. One of the most important tools was GPS tracking. Police managed to secretly attach trackers to some of the gang's vehicles, allowing them to follow every turn and stop. This technology helped officers understand the gang's routes and identify safe houses used for storing drugs and money. The gang was cautious, frequently changing cars and routes to avoid detection. They communicated using encrypted phones, sending coded messages that were difficult to decipher. But persistent surveillance allowed police to slowly piece together these communications and uncover key information. Undercover officers also played a vital role. Some infiltrated circles connected to the gang, gaining the trust of low-level members. This inside access helped confirm details gathered from electronic surveillance and provided human intelligence that technology alone couldn't capture. Throughout this process, the police had to be careful not to tip off the gang. Any mistake could lead to the drugs being moved or destroyed, or worse, violence. The operation required patience, waiting for the perfect moment when the largest shipment was in transit. The culmination came when the white van arrived at the waterfront with 84 kilograms of heroin on board. The timing was precise, based on weeks of surveillance and analysis. All the evidence collected through these methods was later used in court, painting a detailed picture of the gang's criminal activities. The footage showed the gang loading the drugs, the vehicles used, and the movements of the 3 men arrested. This chapter of the investigation highlighted how modern policing combines technology, human intelligence, and careful planning to take down organized crime. It wasn't just luck or chance that led to the bust. It was hours of unseen work behind the scenes, tracking every move until the gang had nowhere left to hide. As the investigation unfolded, a surprising twist came when an insider within the gang decided to cooperate with the police. This unexpected informant turned the case from a difficult puzzle into a more solvable mystery. The decision to come forward was not taken lightly. Trust was fragile in the criminal world, and betrayal often meant danger. But facing the possibility of long prison sentences and the pressure of mounting evidence, the informant chose to help law enforcement break down the gang's operations from the inside. With detailed knowledge of the gang's inner workings, the informant provided crucial information that no surveillance or external investigation could reveal. This included names of key players, locations of hidden stashes, and plans for future drug shipment. The insider's cooperation allowed the police to act quickly and decisively, intercepting shipments before they reached the streets and seizing cash hidden in various properties. The informant's revelations also exposed how the gang communicated, revealing secret codes and meeting places that had kept the operation under the radar for so long. This inside view gave law enforcement the upper hand, turning the tide in what could have been a prolonged and complex battle against the gang. The news of the informant's cooperation spread quietly among investigators, but remained a secret from the public and the gang itself to protect the source. This development caused ripples in the criminal underworld, sowing distrust and fear as members wondered who could have betrayed them. The informant's role highlighted the human element behind criminal enterprises, not just cold business deals, but relationships, loyalties, and the pressure of living a dangerous double life. For the police, this cooperation was invaluable, providing insight into the motivations and methods of the gang members, which helped shape a stronger case in court. It also helped prevent future crimes by giving authorities a clearer picture of planned operation. While the informant risked personal safety by stepping forward, their decision was a turning point that shifted momentum in the battle against drug trafficking in Merseyside. This chapter revealed that sometimes, the key to unlocking a criminal empire lies not just in technology or force, but in one person's choice to do what's right. Behind the headlines of the largest heroin haul in Merseyside history, lies a much darker and more tragic reality. The drugs seized were not just illegal substances, they were the cause of pain, addiction and destruction for countless people in Liverpool and surrounding areas. The gang's heroin, along with cocaine and amphetamines, had flooded communities for years, fueling addiction and feeding a vicious cycle of crime and despair. Families were torn apart as loved ones became trapped in dependency, struggling to escape the grip of drugs that promised relief but delivered devastation. Overdoses became a heartbreaking daily occurrence, with emergency services stretched thin trying to save lives. The gang's business thrived on this suffering. Each shipment of heroin meant more people becoming addicted, more dealers on the streets, and more violence as gangs fought over territory. The money generated from drug sales often funded other criminal activities, from weapons trafficking to money laundering, creating a complex web of illegal operations that harmed society at every level. The police and social workers saw firsthand the toll that drugs took on individuals and communities. For every arrest made, there were countless more users desperate for help, and families left grieving. The heroin supply was particularly dangerous because it was often mixed with toxic substances, increasing the risk of fatal overdoses. The gang showed little concern for the consequences of their actions. Their focus was purely on profit. Community leaders and charities worked tirelessly to support those affected, offering rehabilitation programs, counseling and harm reduction services. But the scale of the problem was immense, and resources often struggled to keep up with demand. This chapter of the story is a sobering reminder that behind every big drug bust is a deeper human tragedy. The fight against gangs like McTigue's crew is not only about stopping the flow of illegal substances, but also about healing the wounds left behind. It's a fight that requires law enforcement, healthcare providers, and communities to work together, confronting not just the criminals, but the underlying issues that allow drug abuse to spread. The largest heroin seizure may have been a victory, but the struggle to protect lives continues. The case against John McTigue, Leroy Kassim, and Terence Shields quickly became one of the most high-profile legal battles in Merseyside's recent history. The trial drew widespread attention, not only because of the sheer size of the heroin haul but also due to the complex web of criminal activity it exposed. Prosecutors entered the courtroom armed with a mountain of evidence, including surveillance footage, intercepted communications, witness testimonies, and the insider information provided by the informant. The details painted a clear picture of a highly organized drug operation, with the three men at its center. The prosecution worked to show how McTigue acted as the mastermind, directing shipments and managing key contacts, while Kassim and Shields took on vital roles in distribution and logistics. The defense teams, however, fought back fiercely. They attempted to challenge the reliability of the evidence, questioning the legality of the surveillance methods and the credibility of the informant. The lawyers argued that the accused were being unfairly targeted and that some evidence had been misinterpreted or taken out of context. The courtroom drama was intense, with each side presenting their version of events in an effort to sway the jury. The trial lasted several weeks, during which the jurors heard graphic accounts of drug smuggling, money laundering, and violent enforcement tactics used by the gang. Expert witnesses explained the nature of heroin and its devastating impact on communities, emphasizing the urgency of the case. The atmosphere in the courtroom was charged, reflecting the seriousness of the crimes and the high stakes involved. For the families of victims affected by addiction, the trial was a chance to see justice pursued. For the defendants, it was a desperate fight to avoid lengthy prison sentences. Ultimately, the evidence proved too strong to overcome. The jury found McTigue, Kassim, and Shields guilty on multiple counts related to the supply and possession of heroin, cocaine, and amphetamine. The verdict sent a powerful message to criminal networks operating in Liverpool and beyond. No one is above the law, and major drug operations will be dismantled. The trial was a pivotal moment in Merseyside's ongoing battle against organized crime, demonstrating the strength of coordinated law enforcement and the justice system. When the sentencing day arrived, it marked the end of a long and intense legal battle, but also the beginning of a new chapter for Liverpool's fight against drug crime. The judge delivered some of the harshest sentences seen in Merseyside for drug trafficking, reflecting the severity of the crimes and the scale of the heroin haul. John McTigue, the gang's alleged leader, was sentenced to 14 years and 8 months in prison. His role as the mastermind behind the operation meant he faced the longest term, a clear signal that the courts were determined to punish those who orchestrate large-scale drug trafficking. Leroy Kassim received a sentence of approximately 10 years and 8 months, acknowledging his key role in the distribution network. Terence Shields was handed around 7 years and 8 months, reflecting his involvement in managing the logistics and finances of the gang. The sentences shocked many in the local community who had followed the case closely. For some, it was a relief to see dangerous criminals being taken off the streets. For others, it raised questions about whether these prison terms would be enough to deter future criminal activity or break the cycle of drug trafficking in the region. The judges emphasized in their rulings that drug trafficking causes immense harm to individuals and society, and stiff penalties were necessary to protect communities. The sentencing also sent a clear message to other gangs operating in Liverpool and beyond. Large-scale drug trafficking would be met with serious consequences. However, experts warned that while this case was a significant victory, it was only one battle in a larger war. Liverpool's position as a major port city made it a constant target for drug smuggling, and new criminal groups were always looking to fill any gaps left by arrests and convictions. Law enforcement agencies pledged to continue their efforts, using lessons learned from this case to improve future operations. The sentencing marked a moment of justice for many, but it also highlighted the ongoing challenges faced by police, courts, and communities in combating drug-related crime. It was a victory, but not the end of the story, a reminder that vigilance and commitment would be needed long after the courtroom doors closed. The aftermath of the largest heroin haul bust sent shockwaves throughout Liverpool's criminal underworld. With John McTigue, Leroy Kassim, and Terence Shields behind bars, power vacuums quickly appeared as smaller gangs scrambled to take over territories and supply lines once controlled by the trio. These turf wars led to a rise in violence on the streets, with rival groups clashing in desperate attempts to establish dominance. The disruption in the drug trade caused instability that affected not only criminals but also local communities already struggling with addiction and crime. Law enforcement agencies recognized the fragile situation and increased their presence in hotspots around the city. Officers conducted targeted raids and surveillance operations aimed at identifying new leaders and preventing rival gangs from gaining too much control. The lessons learned from the major bust helped police refine their strategies, focusing more on intelligence sharing and community engagement. At the same time, the seizure exposed the adaptability of drug networks. When one gang is taken down, others are quick to move in and fill the void. The heroin and cocaine supply did not stop completely. Instead, it shifted, with new routes and methods emerging to avoid law enforcement detection. This cycle highlighted the ongoing challenge faced by authorities. Dismantling one operation often means facing another just as dangerous. On the positive side, the case boosted morale among law enforcement and the public. It showed that coordinated efforts, intelligence work and patience could disrupt even the most organized criminal enterprises. Community groups also stepped up their efforts to support those affected by drugs, working alongside police and local government to provide education, rehabilitation, and harm reduction programs. The bust and subsequent arrests became a symbol of hope, proof that change was possible, even in a city long troubled by drug crime. However, the fight was far from over. The ripple effects of the bust served as a reminder that combating drug trafficking requires ongoing vigilance, cooperation, and resources. The story of McTigue's gang was just one chapter in Liverpool's larger battle against the drug trade, a struggle that would continue to shape the city for years to come. Liverpool has long been a city marked by resilience, and the story of the largest heroin haul seizure reflects both the challenges and the hope within the community. After the arrests and convictions of John McTigue, Leroy Kassim, and Terence Shields, the city faced the difficult task of healing and rebuilding. The drug crisis that had plagued neighborhoods for years left deep scars, but it also sparked renewed determination to fight back. Community leaders, local organizations and law enforcement came together to address the root causes of drug abuse, focusing not just on enforcement but also on prevention and support. Programs aimed at education in schools, outreach to vulnerable populations, and rehabilitation for addicts grew stronger. Clinics offering treatment and counseling services became lifelines for many struggling to break free from addiction. Families affected by drugs found new hope in these efforts, with support groups and community centers offering safe spaces to heal and rebuild. At the same time, police continued to work tirelessly to monitor and disrupt any attempts by new gangs to rise and fill the gaps left behind. This ongoing vigilance was crucial in preventing the drug trade from regaining a foothold in the city. The documentary closes by highlighting the resilience of Liverpool's people, their refusal to be defined by crime or hardship. The city's spirit is evident in the efforts of everyday heroes, social workers, volunteers, teachers, and law enforcement officers committed to making a difference. While the heroin bust was a landmark victory, the story reminds viewers that the fight against drug trafficking and addiction is ongoing. Success requires cooperation, compassion, and continued action. Liverpool's battle is far from over, but the determination of its community shines as a beacon of hope. The city shows that even in the darkest moments, there is the possibility of change, recovery, and a safer, healthier future. This is a story not just about crime and punishment, but about the power of a community united against adversity.